story is so awful, turn the radio off, and she's just done OK. Listen, I try and do this job to the best of my ability. Some people like what I do, some people don't. I try and be as high octane and as enthusiastic. When I hear stories about the father of Sara Sharif, who this afternoon has been found guilty of murdering the 10-year-old. This is in Woking, you might have heard this. He enticed his wife, Batool as well, Beinash Batool. She's been also found guilty of murder. Their faces are on my screen. I wish you'd take them off. The brother-in-law as well has been found guilty of aiding and abetting. I don't want to put a dampener on your afternoon, but I want people to understand what's wrong with this goddamn country. First up, this piece of... oh, man. Exploited EU rules to stay in the United Kingdom, OK? He decided to marry a Polish woman in a sham marriage so that he could stay in our country. He ended up at a £500,000 house in Woking. He didn't work. For all the people who think that this country should be a haven to anybody and everybody, listen to this story. When they discovered this child, 70 injuries, 25 fractures. Neighbours reported that over a 2-year period, because of howling, this is so awful, right? Social services were called as gut-wrenching screams came from a house for 2 years and they ignored it. In fact, social services in Surrey, great job, decided there wasn't anything to look into. This girl was forced to wear a habib to school because of the bruises on her body, but astonishingly, as I said, a decision was made not to look into it. Months later, she was brutally killed. Russ, we're both fathers. I don't care if I get sacked for what I'm going to say. We are going to pay for that piece of filth. I can't have it. Where I come from, that's not right, man. Talk to me.
Yeah, look, this is beyond harrowing,
disgusting,
isn't it? And honestly, where to start with this disgusting story? Got
to do it. It's on every single. It's important.
No, we have, and look, and hopefully for the hapless senior police officers, for the hapless social services leaders that might listen to this, and this might actually make them act and react differently in the future to save a Sara Sharif in the future. Let's hope that actually can be some kind of benefit for talking about this absolutely outrageous and harrowing story. So, yeah, little Sara Sharif, 10 years old, is subject to abuse, not just abuse, torture, let's be honest, torture, by this vile, disgusting monster.
Let me read you something.
Urfan
and for
Sharif.
A woman...
And Beinash Batool, let's say their names.
Yeah.
Urfan Sharif, Beinash Batool. And there's the fact that this was undertaken on this poor, innocent 10-year-old girl who was described, by the way, as a cheerful little soul, despite the fact that she was subject to this abuse for months and years. But this guy, Urfan Sharif, he should never have been in a position to be able to undertake this abuse. He shouldn't have been in the country in the first place. It was a sham marriage that he orchestrated on the basis of being able to stay so that he could avoid deportation. We've talked on this channel many, many times about people that avoid deportation. This is a very, very real example of someone that avoided deportation and then went off not only to commit crimes, but actually the most disgusting and disgraceful
Let me read you some WhatsApp messages from that woman who's been convicted today of murder, Beinash Batool, to her sister. Urfan is going crazy again, beating Sarah up. I'm having a panic attack. I think he's literally breaking her arm or her leg. He's locked us out. I'm literally dying. He won't open the door. I don't get... with the phone the police love...
she's complicit. She's not been sentenced.
Completely complicit. I mean, you're right. Exploiting EU rules. All those do-gooders, right? All those do-gooders, all those people who go, oh, these people from war-torn countries and the EU with their ridiculous common sense. This piece of crap wouldn't have been in this country. Maybe he'd have done it somewhere else. He doesn't deserve to be on the earth. I don't care what anybody says.
So to be clear, so Sharif and Batool have been found guilty today, the pair of them. The uncle has been found not guilty of murder, but guilty of causing or allowing, this is pretty much as bad as far as allowing
the
death of a child. They'll be sentenced next week, of course. I really really hope that that sentence is, I mean, look, the most definitive and harshest sentence there can be.
Can I have an argument with you about that?
Well, look,
they'll get full... Right, this is what they'll get, and they'll get half the sentence out. And I'm going to have the debate whether the bosses here like it or not. Are you telling me... I'd love to know what you think, right? And Ryan's looking at me in that way, right? Does this person deserve to remain on this earth? Well, I don't care if that upsets people. 0344 499 1000.
I'm actually not a fan of corporal punishment, capital punishment, but there should be absolutely unequivocally no way that either Urfan Sharif or Beinash Batool, or indeed Faisal Malik, the uncle, get out of prison.
But they will, Russell, they will.
Well, let's see what happens on Tuesday, because there'll be a sentence, and I'm sure it will be life. Let's hope it is life. We'll see. But then, of course, given the outrageously ridiculous and bendy sentencing guidelines, of course, that we have from government down to the judiciary, we may end up in a situation where these vile monsters are actually eligible for parole in 10 years, 15, 20 years' time.
And I'm going to go right for the new Justice Secretary, because as I heard in the news, and I can't back this up, well, so that's Shabir Mahmood. She's just come out and said something about prisons. I'd be coming out and talking about this.
Yeah.
Listen to this from Don in Chelmsford. Hi, guys. When I worked at a local authority housing department, we used to report potential child abuse cases all the time by phone to social services and always followed it up with a letter. They would always challenge our expertise and were generally hopeless and not interested.
Yeah. And look, it says here very, very clearly in the reporting here that this man, if we can call him a man, I don't really want to call him a man, I don't want to associate myself, actually, with being a part of the same species, frankly, but that the alarm had been raised about him multiple times. He had a history of violence against multiple women and children. And, yeah, look, neighbours, the wife, goodness knows what else, particularly at social services. I think, look, we can't gloss over this, that social services are there, as is the state, for the protection of 10-year-olds like Sara. And the fact that this was brought to their attention, screams from the house, people reporting how it was obvious that this child was being abused over a protracted period of time.
Concerned teachers recorded seeing bruises on Sara and made a report to social services. Neighbours would hear those gut-wrenching screams, all sorts of people, and nothing was done. And you know what will happen is, I've done this before, right, and I've spoken to social services, and they'll go, do you know what, people like you always criticise us, but we do a lot of good work.
No, I'm sure
in life, in work and in life, there are moments where there is no possible way for you not to go, oh my God, how do we fail this kid?
But I'm afraid when it comes to social services, this is not the first time that a radio/TV station has discussed the failings of the British social services. The fact that, you know, there have been children that have been subject to abuse for a protracted period of time, leading often to death, because the social services organisations, the individuals within them, whether it be the rank and file that missed this stuff, whether it be senior leaders that glossed over it for whatever reason, we have seen on very, very many occasions this outcome, this kind of situation prevailing because social services drop the ball. They were called to the house several times. They could see the bruises. They had, presumably, witness statements from neighbours saying that they could hear screams.
What do you make of what I said?
They also know the history of this vile individual, and yet still they didn't take her away. They didn't involve the police in any serious way, by the sounds of it. And the result is not just, and it's horrible to even contemplate the death of Sara Sharif, but what she went through up to that.
I can't and social services will remove a child because apparently the father bathed an 8-year-old and you know, like, took his daughter for a bath. There is no punishment, says Andy from Manchester, that exists which can justify what a barbaric and evil abuse against this beautiful little girl had to go through. Honestly, Jez, I'm with you. I feel sick even thinking about this. Andrew in Thatcham, thank you, guys. We've got to talk about it. Jez, I'm literally welling up listening to this story. This girl, I'm so angry with the state of our council departments that are there solely to ensure this doesn't happen again. Why does it keep happening? We're going to go straight to the phone lines, if you're all right with that. Going to Sunderland. Michael, you're on Talk Drive with Russell, Quirk and I. What do you want to say, pal?
First of all, what a distressing, other than subject we're talking about, but I've got history of social services with my grandson and the lies and the deceit that they do. But until people start being made accountable for their actions, nothing's going to get done. I don't see anybody going to prison, losing the job, or being disciplined when any children in the last 5 years that I've heard about since my grandson's been on this earth and I've took an interest in it, anything is happening to anybody in any social services up and down the country.
It's so true, and Ian Collins made a really salient point. Victoria Columbia, you think about Baby P and all that, and it's just, Listen, Michael, there's many things that bond us as a nation and there's many things that bond us as people, but parents, I don't know. Obviously, this is an evil piece of filth who doesn't deserve to be on this planet. What, is prison good enough for him? Then tell me, am I outrageous to have this conversation? I mean, Russell, you said to me, is 50 years in prison better than...
I don't think your reaction is out of line at all. I mean, there'll be lots of people listening to this thinking, look, yeah, this idiot, this person, this monster, this disgusting individual does not deserve to be on the planet.
Where do you stand on that, Mikey?
No, I agree. I tell you what I would like to do, right? Because I'm like old school, right? And we're all know there's certain women who can handle themselves, right? I'd put them in a cell with half a dozen women with old pit boots on, steel-capped toes, and kick them till exactly what he did to that poor girl, his daughter. How can anybody do that to anybody? But never mind the own flesh and blood. That's what I would do. I'd chuck them in a cell, shut it for half an hour, and come back and see whatever's left of them.
Mikey in Sunderland, thank you. You understand people's frustration.
I was going to say, you can't be surprised at the reaction from Mikey there. That will be now replicated across tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in the country saying, A, this should never have happened, there's been lots and lots of failings, and so on. But
people will say, oh, no, this is what will do my head in. They won't talk about how EU laws allowed that piece of rubbish to stay in my country. They won't talk about how social services have more than dropped the ball. They've caused a child to be killed. They won't, as you quite rightly say, face prosecution like they should do. What will happen is somebody will come out with, you know, the stresses of the job and I've gone off. Let's take this one. This is a voice note. Jonathan on social services, go.
In the airline industry, when there's a plane crash, investigators go in. They investigate everything, and then they're allowed to put protocols in place to make sure that isn't repeated again. This is what we need to have in this country. We need to have open investigations where someone goes in and makes sure and makes protocols that these local authorities and these police forces cannot allow this sort of thing to happen again. It's just, I mean, you know, what year are we in? Are we in the 1600s?
It's very interesting, by the way. You know, when we've criticised the police, the Met Police, and the misogyny, and we talked about Wayne Couzens and those terrible things, we used to use that phrase, marking their own homework. He makes a really good point there. An outside body needs to look into social services as an entity across the UK and change their practices, surely.
And of course, with all these things, there's a government department and therefore a minister that is in charge of this stuff. Now, OK, Labour government have only been in place for 5 months, but I would like to hear in the next 24 hours something from this government that is robust and genuine and authentic around this type of situation. And
they'll just release a few more prisoners, Russ. You won't hear anything about this.
And something put in place to reassure us that this stuff can't happen again. The other thing I worry about, we talk about the over-liberalisation almost of things like the judiciary and the civil service and so on. Are we seeing a situation here with the social service, and I'm asking a question here, I'm not making a statement, I'm asking a question. Are we seeing a situation here where social services is also infiltrated by the woke left on the basis that they just give the benefit of the doubt? Well, guess what happens when you give the benefit of the doubt? People like Sara die.
Well, listen to this, Ash from Bedford, you're spot on the money. It's simple to me. Social services didn't act due to our woke society through fear of being accused of racism due to investigating a family from an ethnic minority. Now, I said this to Ian Collins, and even he looked a bit shocked. We've talked about two-tier policing. Are we in the weeks and months ahead going to learn that there's two-tier social, looking into social work? That is, Ash in Bedford, that, you know, people go, oh, that's extreme. It's not bloody extreme at all.
Well, it's not extreme to ask the question. And the problem is, when we talk about, let's say, is there a higher propensity for people that come here illegally from other countries to commit crime? Again, I'm asking the question. If that is true, we should ask the question, we should look into it by way of data and research and find out if it's true and then do something about it. The problem is with the left and the woke is that the minute people like you, Jeremy Kyle, and I, Russell Quirk, start to say, actually, I wonder if there is a deeper problem here that is one of two-tier nature, is one of an over-woke liberalisation of these organisations, because if so, that needs to be stamped out so that things are dealt with in a balanced and equitable and fair and proper way.
We've got the amazing Maggie Oliver on the show later. I have said until, and I don't care what happens to me, that the Rotherham grooming gangs, which were carried out by British Pakistani men, it took 8 years, and in that time, 6 and 7 and 8-year-old kids got raped, and nobody, the police have admitted it would have been difficult and it might have caused tension. I don't care what colour your skin is, I don't care where you come from. If you break the law, and certainly it annoys me so much because I'm I am obsessed with my children. They are my life. They are the only thing, frankly, that I get up in the morning for, right? And you are telling me that a man got into my country, whether he's in my country or not, and he can do that to a 10-year-old and he's going to walk around free. You're telling me that police officers didn't want to investigate paedophiles because they were British Pakistani men? That is ludicrous and wrong.
But we know that's true. And,
yeah.
and therefore, where else does that extend to in our society? The other thing, just to note, as a bit of an aside, this disgusting creature, Urfan Sharif and Beinash Batool, of course, pleaded not guilty.
Of course they
So
did.
tried to get off the hook, thought they would have a go at getting away with it. Think of the trauma for the rest of the family, those that actually did love little Sarah.
Yeah.
Think about the cost of these animals taking this whole process through a protracted court system.
8 days at the Old Bailey.
Well, let's see what happens on Tuesday, Jez, in terms of the sentence. But let's just say that regardless
This will
of
capture,
sentence...
this is what I love about this station, this will capture, it's on every newsstand.
Well, you'll be
this
talking
will
about it
capture
Tuesday.
the British public's imagination.
Yeah, and
they
I'd
will
like,
not allow this
and I'd
to go
like to
away.
be back Tuesday, frankly, to talk about it with you. But aside from that, I know it's a bit of an old cliched saying, but there will be a special place in hell, I hope, with fires burning brightly and very, very hot indeed for the likes of Urfan Sharif and Beinash Batool.
I have a couple of mates who will no doubt tell me, and I'm going to tread very, very carefully with my words here because Ryan's looking at me as he should do. Karma's a bitch, and if he does go to prison, I can tell you categorically he won't be allowed to come out of his cell.
It won't be an easy ride, will it?
No, and you know, that's not advocating. Listen to this, Jez. My wife is a childminder and always had an excellent review by Ofsted. Carlin Berry, thank you. If anyone rang Ofsted, even anonymously, and said a child was not being minded properly or they had an issue, Ofsted would be round the house within 24 hours and my wife would be immediately suspended pending an investigation. Why is it that social services can be told numerous times of seriously awful child abuse over 2.5 period and they do nothing? Are they worried getting involved because it's a Muslim family? It's not just me that thinks that. That's Carlin Berry. Paula, Cheshire, says it's very simple. Bring back capital punishment. You cannot take the life of an innocent child and get away with it. The Sara Sharif case, is Clive in Solihull, is yet again sadly an example of the failure of our social services and the reason capital punishment should be put back into law. This man is total scum. How can he be allowed to live in our society? He is a monster.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't... Look, capital punishment in this instance would make us all feel a little bit better in terms of vengeance. Justice being seen to be done.
I don't have that, I can't have that argument. It's not about vengeance. It's about if you behave in a certain way, do you deserve to then be living your liberty?
And I get the retribution element, but I don't think it would deter people like Urfan Sharif from behaving in this way.
What does?
Well, him not being here in the first place,
but
having
he'd do
been
it somewhere
almost
else.
deported. Well, yes.
Evil people that cannot...
Does that make us feel better? Probably not.
No,
because
evil people
kids are kids, wherever they are.
Evil people like Gary Glitter, Rolf Harris, this
Savile,
piece of
whatever,
crap. You know, these people are... chemically, there's no excuse, it's not anxiety or mental illness, they're just wrong-uns, they're evil. I don't think they deserve to be in the fabric of our society. That's just how I feel. I mean, we had the whole thing about Glitter being allowed out after 8 years, for God's sake.
Look, I hope I'm wrong, but on Tuesday, you and I may be having the debate as to why the sentence wasn't harsh enough.
Ian, I've got a voice note. Sara Sharif, go.
I think we need the death penalty. We need the death penalty, a death for a death. And also something like this child abuse. I mean, we don't need to keep these vermin in our prison. Why should we bother to pay to keep them alive? And not only that, when they come out after serving a fifth or a quarter of their sentence, whatever it'll be, we'll most probably have to pay for them to have new names. And guess what? They'll get a council house, drawing benefits, no doubt, and being a further drain on the taxpayer.
And you see, if you'd played that call from Ian 5 years ago on a radio station, and I know this, there would have been all hell to pay. He, right, I'm not making a debate about capital punishment. People will have their views, and mine's not about vengeance. It's about you, I believe, you lose your liberty to live amongst your fellow human beings if you take a life, certainly a child. So there is definitive proof, and there is proof in this case. I don't think that's right. But people like Ian, they're everywhere, mate. That's what people feel. Not just about capital punishment, about the frustration.
Yeah, over the next few hours of your show and Kevin's afterwards, we will receive here hundreds of texts, tweets and calls saying pretty much the same thing. And look, I get it. I really, really do.
Do me a favour. Can you stay a bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
All right, we're coming right back. 4:22, this is Drive.